So Leaders Global Network is a network of people all around the world, from some of the top cities, from everywhere from Toronto, New York, Boston, LA, San Francisco, all the way to Asia, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, Shanghai, and London, who are all from different backgrounds. So that could mean a very different education background. Could be engineering, could be business, could be liberal arts, but also focused on going to a different career. It could be folks who are going into investment banking, which is the way we actually originally started. But now it's everybody from investment banking, consulting, accounting, and entrepreneurs, and folks who are Olympic skiers and painters. Just people who love doing what they love to do, and they're good people in terms of helping others and growing their passion through helping other people as well. So the Leaders Global Network, the way we have structured this whole initiative is we teach these workshops around the world. Now, part of the workshop is you have certain sections. One of the sections is the resume workshop. Because a lot of companies out there who teach you about industries, about careers, they're focused too much on how to do the job. But very few workshops are focused on how to get the job. And the one thing that we want to do with leaders is, empower students, mostly, which is a majority of our crowds, how to get that job. And a big part of getting that job, I would say, is the resume part. And to people, resume could be a very simple thing. It's a one-page document with some bullet points. But actually, in my opinion, it's a very complex piece of document. It's an ever-evolving piece of document. And I don't think you can spend enough time on making your resume perfect. And there is no perfect resume. So this resume workshop that we teach is to standardize the format, the techniques, the content of a resume, and how do you target the right audience with it? How do you market yourself the right way with it? And that to us is the resume workshop, which we teach, and it's about an hour-long format. So when you think about interviews, and for all sorts of jobs, not just business-related jobs, investment banking-related jobs, consulting, accounting, but all sorts of jobs. My view is that employers are not looking for folks who are, great or amazing at technicals. I think the first part people look for, hey, is this someone that I want to work with? Is this someone that, I want to have in my team who's going to spend 20 hours of the day or X number of hours of the day working with my team? And that is the behavioral part, the personality part, right? And that's truly how do you get to know the person. And even if, let's just say, you're weak in technicals, you can always teach folks how to do technicals. Those are some step-by-step stuff, but it's harder to change the personality. And the behavioral workshop, which I think is one of the key things, is a way to train students. How do you answer questions like, tell me about yourself, right? How do you answer questions like, why do you want to do consulting? Why do you want to do banking, right? How do you behave in an interview, right? How do you bring out the good energy, the smiles and structure and the right speed? How do you, show that you're genuine in your answers versus sounding very fake or baked-in answers? And those are all the things that I think the behavioral concepts apply. And finally, I think it's the whole combination of, are you likable? Are you someone who I can, put across someone else and they can have a conversation with you versus saying, oh, this is more of an interrogation interview. So that is what the behavioral workshop teaches, which is another, couple of hours during our workshop session. Technical workshop is mostly focused towards accounting, consulting, and banking, the three business fields. In that workshop, we cover accounting knowledge like financial statement analysis, and those are the basics of finance. When you think about any sort of finance or banking job or financial industry job, accounting kind of takes the foundation of it. And accounting is obviously based on the three statements. So knowing and mastery of those three statements is important. But at the same time, you don't want to master it too much where you're getting into too much of the details. Because a lot of the employers, when you look at and you work in an industry, you're not really using the super complex concepts. You're a lot of times using the simple stuff. And that simple stuff getting across to the students who've been in like multiple accounting classes, kind of dumb it down a little bit and make it easy so they can use it and leverage it during an interview is what the accounting workshop is, which is a part of the technical workshop. The second part of the workshop is a case study. Now there's two types of case studies. One is a lot more qualitative case study, which could be consulting focus and, hey, how many red tennis balls or yellow tennis balls are in this room, all right? Or there could be very quantitative case studies, which are usually in investment banking and consulting interviews. And those are much deeper cases with a lot of analysis and formulas involved. How do you properly answer those? How do you tackle those questions? And how do you navigate your path through these complex issues or complex problems and get to the right solution at the end? And I think a lot of students know the answer to a case. If, let's just say, I showed you a box full of tennis balls, I think someone would be like, oh, there's 25 in that, right? But in a case question, you actually need to show how do you get to that answer. And that is something that I think we teach in our case study portion of that technical portion. The last part is evaluation. And that is a lot more finance oriented, right? So investment banking oriented, even some valuation work in consulting and accounting firms. And the whole concept is, how do you value a company? For us as consumers, we understand, a shirt is $25, or this shirt is a little bit more expensive because it's from a different brand or whatnot. So we understand valuation from a basic products angle. But as people, we do not understand valuing companies from a business angle and large corporations. So there's a bunch of techniques that we teach that are pretty standard in the world of finance and even other business worlds. How do you value a business? And those include discounted cash flows, comparable companies analysis, even LBOs, and precedent transaction analysis. So the networking workshop, in my opinion, is one of the most important things, and not just networking workshop on its own, but I think networking itself. And a lot of people will say you should always be networking, always be networking. But a lot of people don't know how to network. For some people, it's like, oh, I should go meet more people, right? But then, how do you meet more people? Right? How do you find them? How do you find their emails? Or let's just say cold call more people. Or is it cold email people? And I think the way we think about networking is that you should always be networking, like I said before, but you should always be networking when you don't need to network. Right? That is when you don't need it, you don't sound too eager, and you don't need anything from the person you're reaching out to. So this way, you actually build a bond, build a relationship with these people, and then one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, maybe 10 years from now, that bond is much stronger that you can use and leverage for things you may need or they may need. So in the networking workshop, we go into deep details about what is the most effective way of kind of navigating this funnel, finding the contacts, finding the emails, reaching out to those folks, reaching out to them, and then ultimately, hopefully getting in touch with them and building that relationship with them. So when you think about all of these concepts, from creating a effective resume, right? Using that resume to get to the right eyes, which is through networking, which leads you to interviews. And those interviews, how do you tackle the behavioral section and then the technical section? Once you combine all those concepts, there's a lot of techniques involved there, and which is what we think is the crucial thing, at least the first step of the Leaders Global Network. That is what our workshops teach. If you come and you attend any of our workshops around the world, on the East Coast, we have Toronto, Boston, New York. On the West Coast, we have LA, San Francisco, Vancouver, London in Europe, and Hong Kong and Singapore. You can attend any of those, and you would get the same training, right? And students can attend from all backgrounds, from high schools to PhD, and even working folks can come in, and they can attend those workshops to get those tools, and then they can apply their own techniques and their own personality to those tools. And I think I would encourage folks to come attend one of our workshops, and the best way to find out is to go to our website, leadersgn.com, and see the events calendar there. There's a lot of great workshops out there. I've used a lot of them personally. There's Wall Street training programs out there who teach you amazing technical skills, how to use a keyboard for Excel, PowerPoint, this and that. Leaders, the idea is a little different. The workshop is just a step one. It's the first thing that kind of introduces you to what this network is. It's your gateway to the network. Okay? Now, that's one part that it does, which is a bigger part. But what most people come to the Leaders Network workshop to do is to learn how to get a job. So the easiest way to describe is there's a lot of workshops out there who teach you how to do the job. We don't teach you how to do the job. We think you can learn that when the company hires you, when you go through training, and you'll be fine. And I personally don't think that's a problem for you. as a student who's in their second year, third year, fourth year of college, about to graduate, looking for a job, that's what they're exactly doing. They're looking for a job, and they want to break that barrier. If we can help them break that barrier, then I can teach them all the Excel skills that they want. If they're never going to break that barrier, then they're just going to, not be able to use the skills that you're teaching them. So when you think about, these skills of how do you break that barrier, how do you get an interview, how do you, successfully pass an interview, navigate to a job offer and start, that to me is, I think, a very exciting thing. On top of this is the concept of monetization. Leaders has always been and will always be a free organization. You can, attend a leaders workshop. Yes, you have to register. Yes, you have to put in some money to register, $20 globally. But you get that money back if you show up and show up on time. And that to us is something very important. When I was a student, it was very difficult to think about all these workshops that were charging you $50 to all the way to $2,000 for a month course. And my family immigrated with only $300. For us, it was a lot of money to go and be like, hey, I'm gonna spend almost 25% of our family's net worth on a workshop, which may or may not get me the job, but it will definitely teach me how to do the job. So one thing that a promise to me with all the students is that if you show up on time, right, to these workshops, you will get your money back. And that is my guarantee forever, until the last day of leaders. And that value is what changes the leaders workshop from a service to a conversation. If the students pay for an event, then it becomes a service. Then it means that they've given me some money and I owe them a certain value based or certain service based on that value. But if you take out that money portion and students are getting that back and they're getting an amazing experience and new ideas and motivation, then they're going to be very, very, very successful. The definition of success is the first thing I think we should kind of talk about a little bit. Some people would say it's making a lot of money. Some say it's getting all the nice brands in life. You want to work at McKinsey and Goldman and this and that. The way I think about it, and it's a very simple test that I have, me personally, is do I wake up happy, right? The day I don't wake up happy, I try to change things, right? Maybe I change my situation, maybe I change the way I do things and maybe my job, whatever it is. I think out of leaders, there's been a lot of successful stories, but the ones that I love, right, the ones that make me really happy are the ones which are kind of those folks who are the underdogs, right? I know this one guy who was in the US Marine Corps, and he attended one of the workshops at Stanford. And at that time, he didn't go to Stanford. So the thing is, our workshops are actually open to everybody, so anybody can attend. He was actually going to a local community college. So he attended the workshop, got motivated, and it gave him a mission of his own, that he's like, look, I can do this. Just because I'm coming from a very non-target background and a very non-target school does not mean I cannot break in. So he took those lessons and worked hard. I mean, the workshop only gets you in the right direction, but then you got to put in the effort. And he did. And he actually transferred to Columbia, got into Columbia University, one of the best schools in the world, worked hard, and got an amazing internship in investment banking, and then finally started working full-time in investment banking. So if you look at those two bridges, they're very far off. Those two destinations are very far off, coming from Marine Corps and being an investment banker, and with a lot of steps in the middle. Those kind of stories to me are very exciting, and they make me happy. The other part is also from a personal angle. We have students who are now friends, or we have candidates who are now friends, not just from a professional angle, but a personal angle. Part of the network is we have mixers that happen every quarter per city. So in Toronto, you'll have 4 mixers. Hong Kong, you'll have 4 mixers a year. And the idea about these mixers is to get those local communities to engage with each other, right? And it doesn't matter what your background is, what year you are, how old you are, none of that. It's just that you're connected by this one bond of being part of the Leaders Global Network. Being connected in that form, you get to learn a lot. And now people are leveraging that network from a personal angle as well. Simple example, hey, I go to Boston, a school in Boston, and I'm visiting Singapore for a weekend or a week or maybe an exchange program. I'd love a place to crash. I'd love a place to stay over. And students can reach out to someone, and if they've built a good enough bond with this person, and leverage that personal relationship, right? There's so many students in this program, or candidates in the program, who I've couch surfed with, right? And I think that builds that personal connection. So when we started Leaders, it was 5 years ago today. And there was no big vision of, hey, we're going to do this, and then we're going to make it this way, and that, The idea was slowly just teach workshops, and that was what I was passionate about personally. Fast forward today, it's been 5 years. We have closer to 500 people in this network now, which is part of the core network. Beyond this core network, we've taught over 25 to 30,000 students globally, right? But these 500 people that are in the network now, and it's going to keep on growing, is, I think, the core result of what Leaders is going to be. The idea for the next 5 years is to build these local communities. Originally we were a global community, and everybody kind of knew each other because we were small, but still global. But now we're global, and each one of those locations is getting scale. So how do you develop those communities? And that's what we're going to be focused on moving forward. And I'd encourage people to attend the workshops and try to apply for that candidate program so they can be part of these local communities. Secondly, with Leaders, the idea is that we want to diversify as well. When we originally started, it was purely investment banking. Within the last few years, we've diversified to consulting, accounting, right? Now moving forward, we want to further diversify. Get entrepreneurs, right? Get musicians, get artists. The community should be of folks who are passionate about whatever they're passionate about, and they want to go the extra mile in that passion. Yes, I was passionate about investment banking and investing and those things. That's why I started that way. But there's people who are passionate about painting. We'd love to add those folks to the network. There's people who are passionate about, surfing. We'd love to add those people. There's soccer players who play professionally. So build a network where you have every kind of candidate in that full profile. And I think ultimately, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if you are a Leaders member of that family, and you meet another Leaders member of the family, my personal goal would be to have a permanent bond with each other, where someone can pick up the phone, talk to someone who has a totally different background, totally different geographic background, cultural background, education background, and career background, and still connect, because they're just good people who are part of the network.